Close enough.
Good evening, everyone. I think that clock is a little bit slow according to the electronic timepiece, so we'll get started. All the council is in attendance tonight. That's great to see. Pretty long agenda tonight, and we do also have a special presentation. We'll do our Pledge of Allegiance, and then we have our invocation tonight is by Ken DePeel, who I just met. He is with the Northview Church here on the Westfield campus. I understand moved here not too many months ago from Kansas, is that right? Because your parents lived in Richmond, Indiana, but they moved here, and so did your brother or sister-in-law or something. So with your one move, we picked up how many residents? 8. That is a wonderful way to multiply us, Ken. Thank you for doing all that. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. God, I thank you for this time to be together tonight. And I personally absolutely love Westfield. It's been a blessing to our family, to my wife and I, and to our in-laws. And we pray that the decisions made here tonight would encourage families, would encourage the schools, would encourage long-term economic growth and development. I've lived in areas where the challenge of sprawl is everywhere. And so I pray that for the mayor, the council members, and all those who have a public interest tonight as residents or business owners, God, that you would help us to be strategic in our planning so that Westfield could be a place for many, many years to come that is a blessing to anyone who lives here or visits here. God, we thank you for this time. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Ake?
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, will the clerk notice of presence of a quorum, please?
Bob Forte,
Here.
Steve Hoover,
Here.
Jeff Lehman,
Here.
Jim Ake,
Here.
Joe Edwards,
Here.
Cindy Spalgerik. Here. Mark King.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
All right, thank you. At this time, there are no changes to the agenda, so it will stand as printed as we go through the items of business tonight. First item of business is the approval of the minutes from October 8th, 2018. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes. I have a motion by Cindy Spalgerik. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I don't know who was first. Mr. Hoover. Second by Mr. Hoover. All those in favor of approving the minutes as they stated, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved, 7-0. We also must approve the claims, and so I'd entertain a motion for the claims approval.
Move to approve claims.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Keene. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Horkay. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I would ask for approval of the motion to approve claims as stated, signify by saying aye for approval.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, hearing none, the claims are approved 7-0. At this time, it's my honor and privilege to introduce John Robbins. John Robbins is Director of the Hamilton County Leadership Academy, and we're welcome to have your leadership in the county, and you do wonderful things, which you're going to tell us about tonight.
Absolutely.
So I look forward to hearing what's going on and what's the latest, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. Many of you know my predecessor, Westfield resident Jill Doyle. Know that I have some big shoes to fill. While I've been in the role just 10 months, I have called Hamilton County home for the last 10 years and Indiana home for the majority of my life. I'm incredibly passionate about helping to make our county an amazing place to live, work, and play. I'm very honored to be leading this incredible organization. For the last 27 years, we've invested in the people of this county. We've helped them gain a deeper knowledge and understanding of Hamilton County. We've connected them to their peers, to HCLA alumni, and other leaders throughout the community. And most importantly, we've empowered them to lead and make an impact in their own backyards. I'm here tonight just to say thank you to the city of Westfield, to all of you on the council, to Mayor Cook, for all of your unwavering support for as long as we've existed. I wanted to share that as we begin our 28th year of HCLA, we have 52 who live here and are still active and engaged alumni. We have 3 more participating this year, including Superintendent Dr. Great, and there are some HCLA alumni in the room here today. The city of Westfield has sent 23 employees through the program between 1995 and 2018, and that is the 3rd most of any organization in Hamilton County, just behind Hamilton County Government and Church, Hiddle, and Antrim. In the last year, over 20 community leaders have given their time to take part in one of our curriculum days or other programs. That includes several of you on council. And finally, the city has hosted an HCLA curriculum day 3 times in the last 12 months, and we'll also be hosting our holiday luncheon at the Bridgewater Club this December. Whether through an investment of dollars, time, or community resources, we could not have sustained our mission in the past without you, and we certainly can't grow our mission in the future without your support. As I lead this organization in the future, I'm just here to kind of share with you why I think the relationship between HCLA and the city of Westfield is vital to our success, and share what we're committing to as an organization as we grow in the future. First, we're committed to strengthening our curriculum for participants, to provide more opportunities for them to develop personally and to feel empowered to make a difference right here in Westfield where they live or work. We're committed to finding ways to showcase the city of Westfield to our graduates through alumni programming. We're committed to convening and facilitating important conversations between community leaders, our alumni, and the citizens of Westfield. Finally, we're committed to making community impact a top priority for our organization by bringing alumni and community leaders together to identify opportunities, address challenges, and develop solutions. HCLA wants to be active and engaged in the communities that we serve. Our organization is only as strong as the people we empower to lead and make an impact. We're committed to doing our part to help ensure Westfield and Hamilton County thrives for many decades to come. So I'd just like to take a moment to give each of you my business card and say if there's ever anything you need, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. And if you have any questions about HCLA, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you, John. We appreciate your presentation. So what would the ideal candidate be to enlist and enroll in your program next year?
Anybody who lives or works in Hamilton County and has a passion and a desire to lead and make their community a better place.
All right,
So
very good.
no age restrictions like some programs to our south. So
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Anybody else have any questions? All right, John. All right, the next, we move into old business. Ordinance 18-38, Han Plaza, PUD. Dane will be presenting. This is up for adoption consideration tonight.
Good evening, Council. For the record, Dane Crabtree with the Economic and Community Development Department. The item before you is a proposed commercial and office project known as the Han Plaza Planned Unit Development. As you may recall from its September 10th introduction, this proposed commercial and office development is located at the southeast corner of 191st Street and Chad Hiddle Drive. This item had its public hearing at the October 1st Plan Commission meeting and received a unanimous favorable recommendation at the October 15th Plan Commission meeting, at which the petitioner provided a revised character exhibit to show buildings with additional architecture variation, as well as new ordinance language that requires screening of wall-mounted utilities. This item is up for adoption consideration this evening. Jesse Pullman from On Point Land Matters is available, does not plan to make a presentation. I am available if there are questions of staff. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dane. Does anybody have any questions for Dane, or the petitioner is here tonight?
I do. I know that we had, a few of the counselors had had some comments about the architecture that was suggested in the exhibits. And it looks like some changes have been made in the second page, if I'm recalling that correctly. I am still seeing some of those one-dimensional, if you will, almost parapet pieces coming up. I don't know what those are called, actually. And we had suggested that we not have those. I do like some of these additions on the second page. I'm kind of hesitant with the first page. I think a lot of those buildings are pretty generic, and I know we were looking for something more special, Prime Corridor. So I just wanted to offer that, so when we go through development plan review, hopefully that'll be a consideration.
Does anybody else have any comment for the petitioner? This time, I'd entertain a motion.
I would move that we approve the Han Plaza as presented.
Okay, I have a motion by Joe Edwards. Is there a second?
Second?
I have a second by Mr. Horkey. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, we have a motion before us. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mark King,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgerik,
Yes.
Jim Make,
Yes.
Chuck Lehman,
Yes.
Bob Horke,
Yes.
Steve Hoover,
Yes.
Joe Edwards.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, thank you. Next item under old business is ordinance 18-39, Stuckey Farms PUD. Caleb presenting. This
Thank-
is up for adoption consideration tonight.
Thank you, President. Good evening, members of the council. For the record, Caleb Burness with Economic and Community Development Department. The item presented before you is the planned unit development being called the Stuckey Farm PUD District. Since the project was introduced, text has been added to the sections 3, 4, and 6 of the proposed ordinance 18-39. Additionally, text on the concept plan has been modified, all of which has been highlighted in the department report. This item has received a public hearing on the October 1st Plan Commission meeting and received a favorable recommendation on the October 15th Plan Commission meeting. The proposal is eligible for council adoption tonight, and Jesse Pullman of On Point Land Matters is here, does not plan on making a presentation, but is available for any questions, as am I, should you have any for staff. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Caleb. Does anybody have any questions for either Caleb or the petitioner? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve ordinance 1839, Stuckey Farms, PUD.
I have a motion by Bob Horkey. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I think Chuck Lehman seconds. Any further discussion among council? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Jim Make,
Yes.
Chuck Lehman,
Yes.
Bob Horke,
Yes.
Steve Hoover,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgerik,
Yes.
Mark King.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Next item up this is also up for adoption consideration tonight. It's ordinance 18-42, and it's about our 2019 budget. Mrs. Tammy Haverford presenting.
Hi, council members. So we have up for adoption the 2019 budget. Just a reminder that we've had the introduction, the public hearing, the budget workshop, and now it's up for adoption. The budget includes a flat tax rate. So what you're adopting is advertised as high, but we would hold the tax rate if that's what the council wishes. Note that the budget also includes 2 school resource officers, as well as 1 K-9 for the schools. There are also 3 partial year patrol officers in the budget for 2019, as well as a training program for the fire department. There's also an increase for health and general included in the budget. We put this on OpenGov, just a reminder that that's still out there and usable from the city website. There's a button called Transparency Portal, or you can search for it. And you can click and watch a video or click here for the portal, and it will bring you to the OpenGov portal, which shows you the annual financial report. So this includes information for 2017 actual, the 2018 budget, as well as the proposed 2019 budget. There are different views with questions that are easy to navigate to so that you can understand more about the budget. You can also contact the city through this button if you have any questions on the budget as well. Are there any questions?
Tammy, you did say the tax rate is proposed to stay the same.
Correct. It is advertised high, so what you're seeing will be adopted high, and when we get the final information from the state, that's when we have the opportunity to cut that down. It just cannot exceed in the forms that are available online right now.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Tammy. This time I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 18-42.
Thank you. A motion by Dr. Mark Keene. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Joe Edwards. Any further discussion?
I do have a couple of comments I'd like to
Thank
offer
you.
on this. I just, I do read Nextdoor website or blog site or whatever you want to call it, plus just listening around and having been involved in developing a municipal budget. I really want to thank John and Tammy and Todd, although a lot of other people were involved, the people spearheading that really need to be thanked for all of the effort and work that goes into that. But I would remind people that we have a 1%, 2%, 3% tax cap in Indiana that we can't exceed. So when people make general comments about, well, here my taxes go up again because the city's doing this or the city's doing that, no, your taxes aren't going to go up. There's no impact. In fact, I believe if we eliminated the entire city tax rate, it would not affect the homeowner's property taxes one bit. We would still be over the 1% cap. So it's not a matter of raising taxes, lowering taxes, or whatever. It really becomes a matter of, are we spending our money in the way we wish to spend it most efficiently and effectively for the citizens of the community? So I kind of want to go down that road, but also remind people, even though the city is holding their tax rate the same, because this next tax bill will contain the construction referendum of the school district, which I believe, Tammy, is 20 cents, even though it was originally thought to be 30. Taxes are going to go up because the legislature, in all of their wisdom, would not allow the schools to put their construction under the cap, just replacing debt that's rolling off, and so our taxpayers have to bear the brunt of that. And none of our present legislators were the ones that did that to us, by the way, just to make sure of that. But we will have tax increases here, but those will go down too. So a flat tax rate, how we should be spending our money, I think is very important, which leads me to something I've talked about before, and that is, I feel a real need at some point in the near future that we should really develop a strategic plan. We have a train headed down the tracks, and we don't know where it's really going. Although a lot of us talk, and we kind of have a good idea where it's going, we don't really have an all-encompassing, what does the council think our priorities are in the city? What do the senior leadership think? What do our citizens think? What did this, what did that? And I really think we ought to step back and think about developing a five-year strategic plan that we can benchmark along the way that guides us to what we need to do, that is also a guide for future budgets.
budget should be driven by what the strategic plan is of an organization and where they want to go. And I'll give you an example. I was hoping, and it won't happen during this particular term of office, but I was hoping that TIF revenue would start getting to the point where we could put some of the TIF area back onto the tax rolls, because the city needs it for maintenance purposes and upkeep purposes. Schools need it for the same thing for their buildings and everything. But I think a part of a strategic plan, my thinking is, we should have something that says by 2023, TIF revenue will be such that we will be reducing the amount of TIF in our commercial entities in the community. It's a guide, it's a direction, but we have, when we start making decisions, we have that hanging out there. It kind of leads us, do we want to do this? Will this help with reaching that strategic plan? And it also helps all the citizens, or gives all the citizens an idea of where we're headed. So that when we get to the station, we know where we get off on that particular stop and add something else as we continue growing. We're fortunate that we're a growing city with growing revenue, and we have to meet those needs through our public safety officials and other members of the staff. But for the most part, this is a very conservative budget, and I think does give us direction, but I would like to see something more, and that is a strategic plan to really point us to where we're going over the next 4 to 5 years. Modifiable as circumstances change, but as I look out at the development in this community, it's hard for me to believe that the tax rate would ever go up over the next 2 or 3 years, and the city tax rate might actually go down, because the pie is getting so much bigger and the way things are being reallocated. And I would just like to have some sort of document that we all agree to that helps us, points us in the direction of where we want to get to, so the budget can be developed along that strategic plan. So.
All right. Mark, may I comment? The fact of the matter is, we do look out ahead. We have 5-year strategic plan. It may not be, you may not have been aware of that, but our analytics department, our enterprise department, headed by John Rogers, does an excellent job. Is John here tonight? John, would you like to comment about where we're going on this?
John Rogers, Director of the Enterprise Development. The 5-year sustainability plan is specific to the budgeting process, and it does include some of the visioning that you're speaking of, Mark. But it is specific to our financial and budgeting process. So did that help answer your question? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Mr. Lehman?
Yeah, thank you very much. I agree with Dr. Keene in the fact that we need a strategic plan on potential growth, where our opportunities lie. Obviously, we've heard tonight about people wanting to come to our city from a live here standpoint. I think that our strategic plan probably needs to involve our commercial industrial growth, those types of, that strategic planning is something that we do talk about. We could probably dedicate that to writing and do a little better with that, but I do believe that our budgeting has been extremely precise, and that our sustainability plan has been well documented. Again, as John mentioned, that's from a tax, or that's from an operations standpoint, assuming certain things. But as we look to the future, we look into our past as to what has happened and where we're going to go. So personally, I think we've done a pretty good job staying ahead of that. We hire professional services to do that. Our consultants have a lot of years of experience for other communities of like size, of larger size, and also of some smaller size. Our challenge, obviously, is dealing with restrictions from the state when we are exceeding the average growth. So we have to look at our growth quotient, we have to look at the things that are put on demands for us as services as opposed to other communities that are not.
Thank you, Mr. Lehman. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I'd like to lend an opinion. I think it'd be real desirable, because we've all talked about it in all of my one-on-one talks with you, is where does this city want to go growth-wise? I mean, I think, Mark, that may be what you're kind of asking, because, I mean, plan-wise, we've got a 5-year parks plan, and we've got a highway improvement plan, and a comprehensive land use plan. But to better define what we want to do growth-wise, I think is perhaps could be done more formally. I've given you my thoughts on not sprawling and concentrating on infill, and, I mean, is that everybody kind of agrees? At least that's the feedback I've gotten from you, but is that what you all want to see? And we could better formalize that kind of opinion. I think we know where we're going with economic development, our areas of concentration being in the hospitality business and the advanced manufacturing business. And those businesses are beginning to take shape. But to me, the greatest input I need is all these developments come forward. Is this exactly what you want to see? And rather than just a one-on-one, let's look at this subdivision and that subdivision, maybe a better overall picture of what do you want the growth pattern to be, exactly where. The comprehensive land plan obviously addresses the entire township, and it gives us some direction there. But as far as specifically where to grow, it's something we've all talked about. Maybe we develop that further.
All right, thank you.
Can I respond to that? I've been thinking for a while that we probably need to revisit our comp plan in its entirety. I know that you say it's been updated, but for me, it hasn't really been updated. It has included sub-area plans and not done a total revisit, if you will, of the entire plan, which should be done. I mean, the very longest you want to go is 10 years. When we did our plan that we have, it was before the economy tanked. It was before we turned into a city, when we still had the utilities, before Grand Park, all these things. And we kind of have looked piecemeal at these different sub-areas, but we haven't gone back and looked at the whole thing. And I think that's something we really need to do.
I appreciate everybody's comments. We're getting off the subject here with ordinance 1842. Any other comments related to the budget at this time? All right, hearing none, we have a motion before us. Would you, clerk, please call the roll?
Denise Bolger,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Mark King,
Yes?
Jim Ake,
Yes.
Chuck Lehman,
Yes.
Paul Forte,
Yes.
Steve Hoover,
Yes.
All right, thank you. Ordinance 18-43, 2018 GEO bonds. Mr. Rogers.
Good evening again, council. My name is John Rogers, with the Director of Enterprise Development. Ordinance 1843, the 2018 GO, is consistent with our strategy over the past 4 years for capital expenditures. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you, John. We've seen this before. Any questions for Mr. Rogers? It's part of our financial strategy. I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve ordinance 18-43, the 2018 GO bond.
All right, a motion by Mr. Hoover. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Boljaric. Any further discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alforque,
Yes.
Chuck Leland,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Hoover,
Yes.
Jim Ake,
Yes.
Cindy Spillier. Yes. Mark King,
Yes.
motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Next item is ordinance 18-46, appropriating proceeds from the city of Westfield, GEO bonds. Mr. Rogers?
The appropriation of the 2018 GO bond proceeds will be used for the purchase of vehicles enterprise-wide and also some road work. Very typical, again, of the past 4 years.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Rogers? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion before us by Joe Edwards and a second by Mr. Horkey. Any further discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Jim Ake,
Yes.
Mark King,
Yes.
Alforque,
Yes.
Cindy Spillier. Yes. Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Chuck Leland,
Yes.
Steve Hoover,
Yes.
motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Then the last item under old business is ordinance 18-48. Mr. Rogers again.
In review, ordinance 1848 is to appropriate dollars from the general fund to cover expenses related to the insourcing of activities at the sports campus.
Any questions, council? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve ordinance 1848, the additional appropriations. Is that on here? Oh, so
It is. I
It's on
missed
here.
that. All right. All right, thank you. All right. At this time, before we go any further, I'd like to open a public hearing at 7:32. Anybody like to address the additional appropriation at this time? May come forward to do so. All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing at 7:33. All right. This is up for adoption consideration tonight. I'd entertain a motion again.
still willing to move that we approve ordinance 1848, the additional appropriation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Second by Dr. Mark Keene. Any further discussion? Right, this time the clerk can call the roll then. Thank you, Kim.
Yes.
Cindy Spillier.
Yes.
Chuck Leland,
Yes.
Jim Ake,
Yes.
Alforque,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Steve Hoover.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, thank you. Moving on to new business, at this time, we have ordinance 1844, the 2019 salary ordinance for non-elected. And I'd also like to invite Mayor to come up and introduce this to us and go through it with us. So thank you, Mayor, for
Hey,
coming
I
forward.
don't get to come up in front of you this often. You don't often want to hear from me. This is a real honor. Thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure.
The subject is the 2019 salary ordinance for non-elected persons. That would not be you and I and our clerk treasurer. So it's all about our 200-some employees. You know, the history of this is that it was actually Ms. Bulgaric last year at this time asked us if we'd ever had a pay study done. And no, we have not. Now we have. So thank you, Cindy, for pointing that out. You know, you've already talked about our 5-year sustainability plan, and we've been doing that for many years. This is another planning device, Mark, that we need to do, I think, regularly, because this government payroll is very complicated. It's a lot different than the private sector. You know, in my trucking business, the boys, we have a bunch of employees, and they may do different things, mechanics, accountants, dispatchers, but they all work towards making a profit in an industry. And what I find interesting here in the government sector is that we have like 12 or 13 different companies, be it Parks, Works, or Fire, and they're all competing not only for the same dollars within this company of Westfield, but also we have to compete with their other cities in that specific discipline. And we walk a very fine line between adequate pay and spending the public dollars smartly. Nothing is more expensive than turnover. It's one of the greatest hidden expenses in any enterprise, is the cost of losing people, having to retrain, having positions empty, having to pay overtime. There's no real line item that allows us to track exactly what that cost us. So for us to be able to compete with our competition as a city, or with policemen amongst policemen in this area, we have done just that, a comprehensive study done by a professional firm. What they did really was go through and to each and every position in the city, not every employee, but because if there were 6 people that did the same job, only one person filled this out. So it was every position in the city. And it was asked in a organized set of questions to define exactly what your position does. Because when we're looking at what we need to pay people, we don't want to go out and hire the absolute lowest pay guy to run our expensive trucks and snow plows and fill the potholes. You certainly don't want the cheapest cop we can find on the block to go by your house at 2 a.m. in the morning while you're sleeping. Or if you need that paramedic, you probably want the very best that we can afford to buy. So each position filled out their exact duties. And this was compared to a number of other cities, not only near us, but similar in demographics. The cities we compared ourselves to, and this company had the data from these cities, was, of course, Carmel and Fishers. But out of Ohio, again, similar demographics, mainly suburban, around the large city neighborhood cities of Dublin, Mason, and Westlake, Ohio, around Columbus, Eden Prairie, Maple Grove, and Woodbury, Minnesota, which I believe is around Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Germantown, Tennessee, which I think is Memphis suburb, or Nashville.
That's correct.
And then Naperville, Illinois, that we know from our downtown studies is a suburb of Chicago. So these areas, we compared our findings to those 10 other geographies, which gave us a real good picture of what do we need to be paying that position. What we found in the whole study in doing these comparisons, we found that there were about 11 positions that are paid under the minimum of all of these composite cities, because what the study came up with was a minimum per position, a midpoint, and a maximum. There were 11 positions currently in Westfield under the minimum, and there are 3 positions that are currently being paid over the maximum. We are bringing those 11 that are below the minimum are being brought up to the minimum in your salary ordinance, this salary ordinance of 2019. We do have further discussion on how we're going to handle some of what they ended up was the compression. We have a thing called longevity pay, very common in cities, in municipalities and governments. And what that does is pay people based on how long they've been there. And that begins if there's a long-term employee, it causes compensation to perhaps exceed that particular line because the longevity pay continues. And that's one of the things that we need to look at as we learn to be able to pay people for what they contribute to the value of this operation. And give, hopefully, our department heads the opportunity to award those that are producing well. So of the 3 positions that we have that are over right now, I think that's something perhaps we should talk about in an executive session, which I think we can do if it's about personnel matters. Is that right? To see how do we want to handle this? And also how we want to work some of the inequities out that exist between some of the compression issues in each one of these lines. Now, what this study does not take into effect are the fringe benefits. And that would include the pension plans, the 401k equivalent that we have in the government. It does not take into effect the compensation due to health insurance. And what we do know is that we are one of the few entities anywhere that pays 100% of our employees' premium on health care. And depends on where that health care thing goes, that may have to change in the coming years. So we'll need some guidance on that as we go forward. So there's a lot of emotion about it. It'll be a little bit of a change in how we compensate going forward. Our goal will always be to be able to recruit and retain the best that we can in our market, competitive with that particular industry. And that's what is up for your consideration, and I'd ask you to take a look at it. If you have detailed questions, we can get you in touch with a consultant that put this together. You have the study there. And then later this month, we need to take a look at it and vote. Any questions I can answer for you? No, there's no raise for you, Mr. Harkey. I'm sorry.
I think these numbers are coming from what's the draft scenario at 3%. Are there other scenarios that were looked at? I mean, we were just given.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure.
This does include the 3% that we've programmed into the 2019 budget.
Anyone else?
It's kind of amazing how close that was to some of these other surrounding communities of our type, I guess. And,
Our type, that's a good description, yeah.
I was kind of surprised at that, but it fit in pretty well.
Not to beat a dead horse, but if I were to talk about a strategic plan goal, it would be a discussion as to where we want our employees to be within that range. Because the communities, I'm familiar with most of those communities. Those are communities very similar to ours. But do we want our people to be at the midpoint, closer to the low end, closer to the high end. That's the kind of direction that the budgeting people would then take to move forward, because they could monitor some of those and know what others are doing. So that's just an example of how a strategic plan could guide budget development in the future, but also let our employees know this is within this range. First of all, we want to be competitive with communities like ours, but within that range, here's where we want to be. And I don't know if all of us have exactly the same thoughts on that, or the senior people in the city, or anybody, but it just, that's the kind of thing that would fit perfectly for that. Because I do think you need direction, not to do it and say, well, okay, in 4 or 5 years, we'll go back and do another salary study and make adjustments as we go along. You know, we should be doing this proactively on an annual basis.
I think it's a study that we need to update regularly.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Very good. Thank you, Mayor. This will be up for adoption, consideration October 29th. We will hold a special meeting at City Services, and those will go out tomorrow with the details on that. We can't hold it here because there's early voting in here, and the chamber has to be secure, so thank you. The next item up for discussion is ordinance 18-49, and this is a council introduction tonight. Bordeaux Walk PUD. Mr. Dorsey, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. John Dorsey from ECD. Before you tonight is the introduction to Bordeaux Walk Plan Unit Development for the property 16707 on Ditch Road. The property is located on the southeast side of the intersection of 169th Street and Ditch Road and is approximately 33 acres. The proposed planned unit development will change the current SF2 single-family low residential land use to an SF4 single-family residential high density with some variations such as lot size and stricter landscaping standards. The Bordeaux Walk Plan Unit development will have a maximum of 72 lots. The proposal anticipates a permanent closing of 169th Street. Since the project was filed, there has been discussion about the merits of reconstruction for the road. The petitioner is working with the city currently to make sure that this will be properly addressed by the public hearing on November 5th. The petitioner is also currently going through the primary plat and overall development plan process. Here representing the project this evening is Rick Lawrence of Nelson and Frankenberger, and he plans to make a short presentation. Petitioner is also here, and we are all available for questions after the presentation.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the council. For the record, my name is Rick Lawrence. I'm an attorney with Nelson and Frankenberger in Carmel, Indiana. We represent the petitioner, Beazer Homes of Indiana. Present here tonight with me are Paul Clare, Vice President of Land Development for Beazer, Matt Pleasant, a land use professional with my firm, and other members of our development team. The matter before you this evening is the Bordeaux Walk Plan Unit Development District, which is a rezone request to permit the development of a single-family empty nester community. The real estate is approximately 33 acres in area and outlined in yellow on the aerial now on display. The site is generally located between 166th Street and 169th Street. It borders Ditch Road to the west. Is immediately south of the Osborne Park, which is shown on the City of Westfield's Parks Department website, and it's west of and adjacent to the Maple Knoll subdivision, which is in this area. The site is currently zoned SF2 residential. Surrounding the properties are zoned per the terms of the Maple Knoll PUD to the east and north, Ackerson Farm PUD to the west, SF2 residential to the south, right here, and the Derby Ridge neighborhood further south, zoned SF3, which is this neighborhood. The site and surrounding areas are designated New Suburban and Westfield's Comprehensive Plan. The next exhibit is the concept plan layout for the Bordeaux Walk neighborhood, which is shown here on the exhibit. Zoning map amendment requests approval to rezone the property to a plan unit development with the SF4 district as the underlying zoning classification. As proposed, the Bordeaux Walk will allow for the creation of 72 lot subdivision with a minimum of 23% open space and amenities that include both internal and external trails that will lead to the future Osborne Park to the north, and benches and green space. As noted, we are in discussions with the Public Works Department concerning 196th Street and the direction they desire to see 196th Street regarding reconstruction or to have it vacated, which will impact the transition along the north side of the site. If any of the members of the council tonight have any comments regarding this issue, we'd be happy to entertain them. The residential product types included in the Boardwalk Walk will offer a mix of single-family, maximum 1.5-story houses marketed toward empty nesters. On the screen are representative character exhibits of what these houses might look like. All home products will have high architectural standards. Home prices will range from the low 300,000s to the mid 400,000s, with an estimated average sales price in the high 300,000s. In conclusion, we believe that Boardwalk Walk will provide a housing option complementary to the area and supported under the terms of a comprehensive plan. We would also invite anyone to attend the neighborhood meeting scheduled for this Thursday, October 25th at 6:30 p.m. at West Rail at the Station Model Home, the Model Home, which is located at 16040 Trestle Drive. We thank you for your time and are glad to answer any questions you have. Otherwise, we look forward to bringing this back to the council at the conclusion of the Plan Commission process. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilors, this is a council introduction. If you'd like to make any comments.
I just have a question. I'm sorry. You said this was designed for empty nesters. Tell me why a $390,000 house would be designed for empty nesters.
I'll let Paul Clare with Beazer answer that more specifically, okay?
Just for the record, my name is Paul Clare with Beazer Homes. What we've intended here is actually a move-up empty nester. We've been very successful in another neighborhood not too terribly far from here in Noblesville. Very similar in size, very similar in characteristic, with about the same size of project. It's been a very successful community, sales-wise. Same price point, same product. We're nearly sold out in that community, and it's been less than 2 years that we've been open. So we believe that being a step up, a higher price point empty nester, this is going to attract the folks who are from the area, or they have young family with grandchildren in the area in Westfield. And so this is going to put them closer to their family. It's an option for them to not have the big yard, not to have the two-story, 4,000 square foot mansions that a lot of those folks might have, but it'll allow them to downsize but stay in a home that is very well equipped for them, is going to have high-end improvements inside. Some of the pictures you saw, there's granite countertops and tile and outdoor living space. Every home will have a rear outdoor living space built into the home. So we believe it's going to be successful like our other community in the Noblesville area.
So the community in the Noblesville area has very few children living in it?
Very few. It's mostly active adult. I think there's one family that might have children, but it's mostly geared towards and mostly sold to people quite like me. My kids are gone, and I don't want the big house any longer. I want the smaller house, but I want a nice house. So that's what we're targeting.
One comment that I would have is the lots on the north side of the development, particularly if the street is reconstructed, need to have the rear elevations addressed very specifically in this ordinance. And really, even if that's a park to the north, that's still public space, and we are very cognizant of what people see from our right-of-ways and our public spaces. So think those, the rear elevations of those need to be addressed, or if you could face homes toward the street, that would be ideal, but at the very least, we have to make sure that those rear elevations are very attractive to people who see them.
You mentioned that this will have built-in, something on the rear for living space, but that doesn't appear anywhere in the ordinance right now. So I would like to see language to that effect and perhaps some illustrations.
One that's already in there.
There's also a few inconsistencies, like the requirements, you have to have a minimum of 2 windows on the front facade, but when you look at all the exhibits, there's obviously a lot more than 2. So I'd like for all those kind of details to match up with what you're actually offering.
Okay, and on the slide now, this is an example of a rear living outdoor space right there, just for reference.
That perspective was indicated so that you could see the amenities of that outdoor living space, the fireplace, and the TV that was mounted above it. But if you look around it, you can see that it's open. These can be enclosed as well. What we're finding, I think most of them are leaving them open. It's covered with roof. It is built into the home, so it's not an add-on the back of the home. It's not just a porch pop that you see on a lot of homes. These are actually built into and designed specifically into the main structure of the home.
Thank you for your comments, though.
Any other comments? Okay. All right. Thank you for the introduction. We appreciate that.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Ordinance 18-50, amending ordinances 1023, 1116, golf carts within the city of Westfield. Mr. Jeremy Lawler.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. Again, for the record, Jeremy Lawler, Director of Public Works. Before you tonight is ordinance, that's for introduction, is ordinance 18-50, amending the golf cart usage rules of the city. The only specific change is to section 8. Sure. Previously, golf carts were not permitted on perimeter trails that are in the right-of-way unless they were specifically signed that way. That was identified basically for the golf course communities so that they could have access around. This ordinance would modify that, allowing golf cart usage on all perimeter trails within the city, which is the major change. And additionally, we are proposing a section of named trail to become golf cart friendly, which is the Midland Trail from Cary Road to Mill Street or downtown Westfield. We did this with the intention of getting our most heavily populated golf cart area, which is the Bridgewater, Brookside, Oak Manor area, based on a heat map of permit locations for, to the downtown area, so that we can offer another amenity and area for people to get downtown. So the exhibits here that you see are showing the routes to that section of Midland Trail, which is awkwardly turned sideways. And then additionally, we've incorporated, thank you, incorporated a signage plan as a part of the ordinance too. Our plan is to roll this out as a phase 1 with the trial usage of the Midland Trail as a golf cart friendly corridor. If successful, when we navigate through this and whatever problems that may arise, we would like to expand this throughout the community and into our other parts of town that they could also either get to downtown or get to Grand Park and some of our other highlighted draw spots. So again, with that introduction, we'll see it again here in a month, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
One question I do have is, not so much as it pertains to the usage of the trails in this way, but when you reach a destination, where are you going to put your cart? So has there been, I don't know, has there been any discussion about parking the golf carts?
We have talked about it. Right now, the proposed plan is in our parking lots with the cars and parking spots that are along the roads.
Yeah, we could probably get 2 carts side by side in a parking stall.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Or if it's popular, maybe we'll mark some spots.
Mhm.
Okay, all right. very
and-
See how it goes, that's why we want to start out small.
Yeah, yeah.
And in doing research for this, we've seen it done both ways in other communities that are golf cart friendly. Some have a few specific golf cart spots, others just use car spots, so.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? All right,
Thank you, guys.
thank you very much. At this time, residents who wish to address council on items not on the agenda may do so at the present time.
Good evening, council. My name is Ray Schneider, and I live at 4455 Whitney Road in Westfield. I'm here tonight to comment on what a city council member had mentioned at the last meeting, that if you have a question, all you have to do is pick up the phone and call the city. You know, when I get up here, I may get a little flustered because I'm up against the clock, and I've got more questions to be asked than what time permits. So, my wife and I moved here 5.5 years ago from Illinois, and, oh, here goes the clock. 5.5 years ago from Illinois. And so I got involved attending city council meetings, planning meetings, and other city meetings to become more educated and know about the city that I was moving into. After moving here, in attending one of the city council meetings, a city representative was preparing Grand Park financial projections. In that meeting, I asked the representative who prepared the projections. I was told numerous times the city's CPAs, okay? So I requested a meeting with that representative. When I went to that meeting, there was another individual that came into the meeting, and I also asked a city resident to attend the meeting with me so that I knew exactly what I said or what was said to me, so I could verify it. I asked the question again in that meeting. At this time, the second employee who entered the meeting admitted, I prepared the projections from what I knew. So what I was told the city's CPAs did it was not exactly correct. So I started having some questions, attending some of the meetings. I went to the clerk treasurer's office, asked for information. Within a couple days, I had the information that I could sit there and review it. And then I went on to another meeting. I had questions. I went to the clerk treasurer's office again with questions. But I come to find out at that point in time, the information that should have been in the clerk treasurer's office was not there. It was either in city services or legal offices. Shortly after that, I found out that I received an email from a higher-up individual that works for this city saying the information I was requesting was not available. You know, I questioned that individual again, and he says, what you're asking for is not available. My next step, I went to the state freedom information, and that fell on deaf ears. I know there's people in this community that has requested information, waited 6 months, got information,
and the information they got was not even what they asked for. So when I stand up here and I mention about transparency, I'm disappointed in the city, some city staff, council members, you know, about being transparent with what you're telling your local residents. You only tell them what you want. And one thing I was taught at an early age is you always tell the truth, even though if you're going to get in trouble. So that's my thoughts there, you know, and I've got emails from about 5 of the council members up on this panel right here and legal. And so, I mean, I went to the extreme and I was blocked of getting the information. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else? All right, thank you. At this time, do we have a report from council on APC?
Would you be able to do that, Mr. Harkey, since I was not there?
Figured you were tuned into the meeting anyway. On Plaza that we dealt with tonight was one of our items of business last week. Obviously, it came here with a favorable rating, and we have now dispensed with it. Ditto for Stuckey Farms. Chatham Hills Section 5 was also presented for development and site plan approvals, which were granted. And that was it. The meeting lasted all of about, I think it was 17 minutes. So if you were tuned in and blinked, you might have missed it.
All right,
We were very efficient in what we got done, and
all right.
moved on.
I gave out tonight before the meeting a sample of a resolution about topsoil preservation in the city, and I just wanted to just see what you thought about that or had any comments. The way it works now is a lot of our lots, the topsoil is scraped off and not returned. And then so it's difficult for us to plant or do other things. So I'd just like to know that's just a sample there of some language, and it would require the removal and replacement of topsoil. And this was something I wanted to know what you would like to do or how you feel about that, and if it's something we would like to pursue as a council tonight. So I invite your comments.
Well, this is something that I have been kind of pushing for and asking questions about as to how we would do this. I've actually talked with a couple of developers about how this would get done. Not the specifics that are in here, but something that, so I very much think this is something that we as a green city need to be looking at because and this is from personal experience, my daughter's home in Centennial and mine in the city. You can't hardly dig in your yards. You can't plant things. I know runoff has to be considerably higher because of the compacted clay that's left. So I think this is something that we definitely should be looking at. I'm glad to see a proposal come forward that we can dig into. I do think it's important that at some point in this process that we hear from our developers, hear from our citizens, whoever has an interest in this, pro or con, and what the issues might present with an ordinance such as this, or with a requirement such as this. I don't know that it's something we should do without some discussion. It would be my only comments. I mean, I would be interested in what people think about this, pros and cons, so that we can make the best decision that we can.
All right, thank you. Any other comments?
I agree with Steve. I think this has been needed for a while, and from an environmental standpoint, from a homeowner standpoint. It's just needed all around. So I'm happy to see some movement on this.
Agree as well. Jokingly commented to you earlier, I'd like to see if we can make it retroactive 30 years, because I've had a very frustrating time trying to throw things around my house ever since I built it in 1988, and it's something that I would have loved to have had in place at the time.
Is that in the form of a motion?
To make it retroactive 30 years, sure. Not sure it'll go very far, but,
All right. Anyone else? So what I'm hearing is we want to mark this up a little bit, or get your comments, and reach out to the development community and get some feedback, and then see where it goes from there, and what it would look like as it comes back. So,
I don't know if you can get a fiscal analysis from somebody on how much that would add to a price for the home, or, an average home or something, but it might be good to get that from somebody who's not directly involved, because who knows, I'd like a truly independent analysis of that.
thank you for all your comments. All right, very good. Any other comments? All right, hearing none, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Ake. As many of you know, we finished the Monon Trail. The ribbon was cut last week. I was honored to be able to have in presence there, and also able to take him on a tour of the whole trail, and that was Alan Burnell, who dreamed of the trail many, many years ago, and he made it. And we went from one end to the other in the yellow Jeep, and he just thought it was fantastic. So that was a very historic moment to get that finished from one end of our city to the other. And there's a couple people that worked on this over the last 5 years. Dustin Shue and Chris Page worked on this project for the city, gosh, for about 5 years. And they had to fight through the design, acquiring over 40 properties. They avoided the Indiana bat successfully, experienced numerous delays with the utilities, as we normally do, but it did come in on time and within our budget. So I'm very, very pleased with those guys for working that hard on it. We had bulk trash day 2 weeks ago. Over 586 cars came through the line there. So that's getting to be a very popular event. And coming up, two important things. Barktober Fest is this Saturday for all of our dog lovers. And in the first 2 weeks of November, once again, we're hosting the Big Ten Men's and Women's Soccer Championships. The women's are the first weekend, and the men's are the second weekend, and attendance outside of the state is solely based on what teams all the way from Iowa to New Jersey, Rutgers get plays. So we're trying to get as much local attendance as we possibly can out there for the Big Ten Soccer Championships.
All right, thank you. Well, that concludes our agenda tonight. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
I have a motion. Second, motion by Steve Hoover, second by Bob Horke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Stand adjourned. Thank you.